This one's about sort of 9 or 10 centimetres long and about 4 or 5 centimetres wide. And you can see another one here, which is longer but not quite so wide. It's quite amazing. And actually, if you look down in the rock here, you can see that there are quite a few of these Phenocrysts. And the Phenocryst crystals, so the crystals that you can see here, are feldspar. Granite comprises typically 3 main constituents: feldspar, quartz and mica. There's also smaller constituents like tourmaline that you get in varying quantities. But here, can you see also how the Phenocrysts have aligned? They've grown in a particular direction. Well, I guess they've grown. It's possible that the granite was still semi-molten and they flowed in that direction. But I think it's more likely that they've grown in that direction, probably perpendicular to the pressure, because you would expect the Phenocryst to grow perpendicular to the pressure rather than towards the pressure. So the pressure would have been coming oriented from the top to the bottom of the screen, and then the crystal has grown perpendicular to that pressure in the path of least resistance as a result. It's also interesting that crystals like this would have taken thousands and thousands of years, possibly tens or hundreds of thousands of years to grow to this size, which gives you some indication of just how long it took the granite to cool down once it was in place. There's a slightly redder version here. In terms of granite blocks as a slipway, it's very heavily eroded, this piece, but actually the red gives you a really good indication of what makes the Phenocryst stand out a bit more. And there's some really large crystals in the rock here. There's another thing I want to show you as well. If we zoom up a bit, you can see the way that the beach has formed this pattern of sand and gravel. And why does it do that? So we've got a number of like troughs with sand in the bottom and a number of peaks with gravel. And that's purely due to wave action. That's geology forming in front of your eyes. And what it is, it's the waves come in and they scour channels through the beach. And then as they wash back out, they erode channels as they wash back out. So as they come back in, the wave's got lots of energy, but it loses it very quickly, and all of the sediment in that wave drops out. And then as the wave washes back out, it's got far more energy, and it can transport that gravel and cobbles back out into the sea. So what you've got here are channels where the wave has washed back out, and in fact in this one you can actually see what looks to be flow marks flowing along, scour marks where it's washed items of gravel and cobbles back out towards the sea. And then you get these ridges here, which is where the waves wash in. And the channels where it washes out, also known as rip channels, rip currents, and can be very dangerous. On this beach they're actually very close together, probably only about 10-15 metres apart. On other beaches they can be much further apart. Some beaches only have 1 or 2, and again they can be really dangerous. If you're a surfer, you'll know exactly what a rip current is. And that's where the majority of the current is flowing back out towards the sea. and those are the currents that have the most scouring effect, because they're A, always flowing in one direction, or nearly always flowing in one direction, and B, because they're flowing towards the sea, that's where the sediment will be flowing, or the water will be flowing the fastest, and where it can therefore transport the most material and the largest material. So perhaps I haven't explained that quite as well as I could have done, but that's perhaps what we'll do is we'll do a different video going into currents on the beach and the patterns they leave in a bit more detail, perhaps when there's a bit more daylight around later in the year. But you can actually see it far more clearly after a big storm. So I'm recording this on the 10th of January. Storm Granite came through less than 48 hours ago. So the sea state was very rough, and as a result this beach looks as if it's been storm ravaged, even though the sea is what could only be described as flat calm. So you can see channel after channel formed by these waves, and you can imagine the waves crashing over the top of the promenade there. This beach faces south, so it is only the waves here. The wind from Storm Granite was coming from the northwest, so we'd have actually been sheltered quite nicely from the wind here. But actually when the waves form into the wind, it can increase the height of the wave significantly, because the wave is forming against the wind. Ultimately the wave will always win, and it can cause those waves to pick up very, very high indeed. And what you're seeing here are patterns that are repeated in the geological sequence. You know, perhaps in the micro scale, you look down, you can see individual scour marks on the beach in sand and silt. You're seeing them in the 1-to-1 scale here. But actually, if you go offshore and look at the currents offshore, you'll also see these same patterns repeated in the macro scale, perhaps at a beach-wide level, you know, possibly even bigger than that. And that's because geology tends to work in cycles, and if you see something that's visible and present in one scale, there's a very good chance that it will be repeated in both a larger and a smaller scale, because that's how nature tends to work, that's how the environment tends to work. It's really interesting, or at least I think it is. But what it does is it gives you an understanding of what's going on out there and on other beaches, and perhaps on this beach in the summer when there's a lot more sand around, a lot less seaweed, and you can't quite see what's going on in the same level of detail. Right guys, I'm going to try and starting to get a bit more uncomfortable underfoot here. Lots of soft sediments here, lots of very loose, sorry, soft isn't correct for gravels, lots of very loose sediments here. And starting to get a bit more challenging. And I'm going to try and work out how I'm going to get across this river as well. So for the time being, stay safe. Hope you found this helpful. If you want to come and see the granite of Land's End for yourself, the Land's End intrusion, St Ives, Penzance, if you draw a line between the two, any of the beaches west of that line, you can see the granite pretty much exposed at beach level. Porthcurno is a very good place to go, although it can get very busy in the summer. I'll try and do some more videos. There aren't many places in Cornwall where the granite's exposed on the beach, so it's actually quite nice to see it down west here, and yeah, it's fantastic to see. And it's really beautiful to see granite sea cliffs. So keep your eyes open next time you're in this area. Have a look around you, see what you can see. Anyway, for now folks, stay safe and I'll see you on the next one.